Hello and welcome to Hexed Encountered. My name is Joe. This will be part 2 of a playthrough of scenario number 58, Mopping Up, from Band of Brothers Old Breed South Pacific from Worthington Games, designed by Dean Halley and Jim Krohn. And we will be picking this up in turn number 2. We did turn 1 in part 1, so if you haven't checked out part 1, might be a good idea to do so, just so you're up to speed on what what's going on in the scenario, set up, all that stuff. So we will pick up right at the start of turn number 2. The U.S. goes first. So as you can see on the board here, we have the U.S. units in 2 areas, up top, which is the north, and down here at the bottom, which is the south. So let us start. We'll start in the south. Now, the first thing I'm going to do, I think, is I'm going to use my weapons team here, my machine guns, to attack this enemy machine gun, which is across kunai grass and in jungle. So we're going to use we're going to get a -1 modifier here for the terrain and a -2 here for the cover. Their firepower is a 7, so I'm going to drop 3 from 7 and end up with a 4. So we're going to roll 1 die. And we get a 4, which is a hit and a suppression. So we drop a suppressed marker on him. We drop a used marker on our weapons team. And that is that. So that's our first activation. The operations range for the Marines in this scenario is 2 to 4. So you have to use 2 units, and you can use up to 4 units before we swap it over to the Japanese, and their operations range is 3 to 5, so they have to use 3 and can use up to 5 before it would switch back to the Americans. And then once everybody's been used, we move on to the rout phase, the melee phase, and the recovery phase. So pretty straightforward once you get the system down. There is a lot of nuance in here as well, and we'll talk about that too. But as I said, if you watched part 1 or any of I did 2 tutorial videos as well, where we went through the 2 in-game training scenarios provided with the game to kind of get everybody up to speed on how it works. So I'm not going to spend too much time talking about that. I just wanted to mention it. So that's one activation, which achieved what I wanted it to, which is to suppress this guy. Now, second activation, we're going to take this guy here, and we're going to attempt to get into melee with our weapons team here. So he declares he's moving. Now we can possibly get op fire, depending on what the Japanese want to do, because they have 2 units over here. But, from their standpoint, you've also got a Marine unit here and another one here that I can get to them for melee, okay? The goal of this scenario, just real quick, is for the U.S. basically to eliminate all the Japanese units. So what we're going to do here is we're going to attempt to move in here. So he's going to attempt op fire, because you can opt. This is the only time you op fire a unit before it moves into a new hex, because he's moving into melee. It's an exception to the rule. Typically, op fire is only available if you move to a new hex and then you get attacked in that new hex. In this case, he's getting attacked here. So we're going to roll 1 die for the Japanese. I'll use the white die for them if I remember to switch between. And he rolled a 5. He needed a 7. So that's good. He can now attack. So now he's using his proficient firepower of 6. They're adjacent, so they get a +3, which is 9. And they lose 2 for the terrain, so it goes down to a 7. And he gets a 4. Now, if you can add the 4 of the die roll to the casualty rating here, which is a 4 as well, and have it be under the firepower, it would be actually a 2-step suppression and a casualty. That is not the case in this instance because it's only 3. There's only a 3 difference, so not 4. But that does result in suppression. So now the Marine Corps unit here can roll, and if he gets a 6 or lower, he can still move into melee. And we get a 7, so he's stuck there. So they are used, and they are also used. And that's 2 activations for the Americans. Actually, you know what? I'm going to use a command point here to re-roll. Is that one of the things I can do? Let me check that. I kind of forget what you can use your command point for sometimes. Re-roll any morale check. Re-roll a melee. No, so I can't do that anyway. So that is not one of the things you can do with a command point. So we won't do that. So now this guy is going to try to do the same thing. He's going to try to go here. Okay, so they can now op fire against him. Or, well, actually they're not concealed, so they can't do an ambush. If they were concealed and he was going in there, they could say, I'm not going to op fire because we're going to do an ambush, and then you get a die roll bonus when you go into the melee round. So that's not going to happen here. So he's going to move in. Now this is going to be a little dicey for this guy because he's in kunai grass, which is only a cover of 1. And this is an elite unit on top. That is the colonel's unit, and underneath him is the is a second line conscript. All right, so this will be the 3rd activation for the Americans. So he's going to try to get in there. So again, we're going to use the white die for the Japanese. So the colonel's firepower will be a 4 because it's not it's op fire, but it's not planned op fire. So it's a 4. He's going to get 3 for adjacency to make it a 7, and lose 1 for the kunai grass, which makes it an 8. And he rolled a 10, which is always a miss. So the colonel is going to be used, and I'm just going to drop this on him. Put him on the bottom for the moment. Now this guy can do the same thing, and he may as well. His proficient firepower, however, is only a 2. So 2 plus 3 is 5 for adjacency. Minus 1 is 4. So he gets only a 4 for a hit number. And he gets a 1. Now this is something I have not done previously, but when you roll a 1, 2, or 3 in the Pacific game, it's an event. So you resolve the roll first, and then you go in and you apply the events after. So his firepower was a 4. He rolled a 1. That's a difference of 3. So it's not enough to doubly suppress the unit, but it does suppress him. Okay, so this guy is also going to be used, and I'm just going to drop them both underneath that used marker there. He's now going to roll against his morale to see if he can get in there. He cannot, which is bad news for the Americans. So now we resolve the event. So how does that work? Well, in our rule book, we're in turn 2. I forgot to put that there. In our rule book, on the back, we have an event table. Okay, so when we roll a 1 or a 2, when you roll a 1, it's for the side that's making the attack. When you roll a 2, the defender gets the event. So you roll a 10-sided die. We got an 8. So an 8 is removed, used, and or op fire counters from 2 infantry units or 1 vehicle, gun, or carrier with passengers, not aircraft. If these are removed from a side that had finished using units for that turn, they may be used the next time the operations range reverts to that player. Okay, so what that means is that the Japanese can take used markers from 2 of their units. Well, we have our weapons team, our machine gun over here, and we have 2 squads. Which ones do we want to do it from? I'm going to say this one, because otherwise there'll be a final op fire. Now, in theory, this guy could try to assault the machine gun, and maybe he will, given that these guys are now unused, and then they would get op fire against them. But if I came out, this is jungle, right? Yeah. So that would be 3, 4.5. Yeah, so it seems unlikely they would do that because they would have to go here, 1.5, 3, and then use a command point for 6 to get in there, and they would be subject to adjacent op fire from that unit. So either way, this is the right call for the Japanese. So they are now no longer used, but this so that's 3 used for the Americans. And I guess in this case, what do we want to do here? You know what? I'm going to risk it anyway. Even though this is very, well, maybe not. Maybe not. Because if we go here, yeah, let's do that. We're going to go here. We're going to use our command point to get in there as well. But first we need to resolve the Japanese op fire. So again, it's going to be 4 plus 3 for adjacency is 7. Minus 2 is a 5. And I totally missed. And it's a 10 again. That's twice now. So that he misses. So he gets his used right back. And now we'll do the other one. So he's a 2. Plus 3 is 5. Minus 2 is 3. And he rolled a 2, so he does suppress him. And a 2 is an event for the defender. So we roll again on our, whoops, it's not that book, it's this book. We roll again, and we get a 6. And a 6 is add concealment counters to 2 unconcealed, unmounted squads or weapons teams that are in a hex that gives them a beneficial terrain modifier and is not adjacent to an enemy unit. So we will conceal... We'll conceal our weapons team, and we'll conceal this guy as well, since he's already suppressed. So, okay, so they are going to now use a command point. So both these guys are used. They're going to use this command point to attempt to move into that hex, but he has to pass his morale check, and he does. And I used the wrong die. So he gets to move in. I'm going to put the command point underneath the suppressed marker. And they also get a used marker. So that's now 4 used units for the Americans, and we flip to the Japanese. Now, special rule in turn 2, when we get to the operations range for the Japanese, they get to pull a unit out of the cup for their reinforcement, who comes in under the fog of war rules, and it is a second line squad. They can be placed anywhere. They can be placed anywhere that is 1 to 2 hexes from a Japanese unit, but not in the same hex as an American unit. So, one of the things is that if a Japanese unit is next to the colonel, they get a +1 morale. So we're going to put them right here. And they get a conceal marker as well. So they've got 3 squads and a weapons team here, a platoon essentially, and the Americans have a platoon as well. So this is very even here. Up here, the Americans have kind of an advantage because there's only a couple units here for the Japanese. So once that's done, the Japanese operations range begins. We start playing for them. So what we're going to do first is... Now, I mentioned this in the previous video. From my standpoint, there's one rule that says the Japanese cannot do anything. They can't move unless they have line of sight to an American unit. Now, because this guy is concealed again, that would mean this guy can't see him. And he can't see these two because they're hidden by this hill and the jungle. This guy has no line of sight to an American. This one does not. This one does not. These two do. This one does not. I guess they kind of do there, but... So that doesn't give us a whole lot of options here. Now I could mark these two op fire. I could mark some of these guys op fire if I want to. I can do something here. That might be useful, maybe. So let's do that. Since this guy's a freebie, I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive than I would normally be for the Japanese here. So we're going to have this guy right here attack. Try to get into melee with this unit right here because he's suppressed. And so we can try final op fire with this guy and that guy as a matter of fact, which we will, of course, but it's a little bit more difficult. These two are both suppressed as well. So, and their firepower obviously gets reduced as well by 2 on final op fire. So he's going to attempt to go in here. So we'll do final op fire for this Marine squad right here first. So it's a 4 minus 2 is 0. Plus 3 is 3, minus 2 is 1. So it's just a 1 to hit. And he got a 1. Okay, so that's going to suppress him. Now we have to roll for the event. And since it's a 1, it's an event for the Americans. I keep trying to grab that. So let's roll this again. I've been trying to use it. So we roll a 5 this time, and a 5. Select 2 enemy units to become unconcealed. If one of the units is in a fortification, then by rule of fortification loses concealment. So let's take the conceal markers off this guy and this guy. All right, so they're suppressed. They can still attempt it, so they'll roll again. And he got a 5, which is below the 6, so he does get to go in here for the melee. Actually, wait, hold on. I got to do my other final op fire. This guy can do the same thing. He's going to need a 1 because his firepower is a 4. We're going to take 2 from that to make it a 2. He's going to lose the 2 for this. He gets no bonus for adjacency, so that's a 0. And he's going to lose another 1 for this hindrance here, so it's a minus 1. But by rule, if you roll a 1, it is always a hit. And we rolled a 10, which is always a miss. So that was a waste. And we'll try it with this guy. Now, he's a machine gun. 6 minus 2 is a 4. We're going to get a minus 1 for the hindrance here, I think. Because we're kind of firing up the spine, but he's moving into this hex. So 6 minus 4 minus 2 is 2. And I'm going to take the minus 1 for the hindrance as well. So they also need a 1. And they get a 7. So no harm, no foul. But you do want to go through and complete the process of the, op fire. So that's one use for the Japanese. We'll do this because they're expecting to be assaulted, and this way they'll get full op firepower when they attempt it. So why not? So that's 3. That's enough for the Japanese. We'll swap back to the United States. And sure enough, this is what we're going to do. We're going to try to assault here. So we're still in turn 2. The U.S. will now, go to attack here. So for op fire purposes, they get full firepower, which is a 4. Minus 2 plus 3. So 4 minus 2 is 2 plus 3 is 5. They rolled a 1. So again, we get an event, but we also, the firepower was 5. We rolled a 1. That's 4. So they're going to actually fully suppress and reduce this unit. Now, because it's a 1, the Americans roll for the event, so we'll do that. And it's a 9. And a 9, gain 2 additional one-time use command points that may be used on this or future turns. Use CP counters from a national. Oh, okay. Well, I think I have 2 more command point counters anyway. Oh, I see. I see what it's saying. I don't have any other games out that have other not used nationalities here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these no hill counters for it. which is kind of weird, but I'll know that the no hill counter means those are command points. So I've got three command points now, which is nice, I guess, but okay, so that's done. They are now used. So I'm going to try the same thing here. So I'm going to have the same exact, well, not the same exact situation because they're in kunai grass, so it's going to be even worse for them. So it's a 3. It's a 3 plus 3 is 6, minus 1 is 5. And they rolled a 5. So the Japanese are rolling pretty well in this particular scenario, and the Americans are not in general. All right, so now we will, oh, I forgot to attempt. They need to roll a 2, so let me do that, see if we can get in there anyway. And we can. Now, when you roll it in the morale check, you don't get an event. It's only combat, basically. So now we'll need to roll a 6 here, and we do as well. So both of these guys, well, let's flip that to used. Both of these guys get into melee. Now, he's probably going to rout because I'll have to roll a 2 or he's going to run anyway, but, you know, it's worth trying to see if we can get him in there. So that's 2. We're going to move this guy. He can go 1, and that's actually 1.5. 1.5, 4.5. Well, we can do it. So he's going to try final op fire. It's a 2. Minus 2 for final op fires is 0, plus 3. So it's 3, and then minus 1 for being in kunai grass. So it's a 2. So he has to roll a 2. Roll the 6. So he fails. This other unit gets in there as well. So now we have 2 opportunities for melee there. We've now used 2 units. I'm going to take this guy, and I'm going to use one of my command points here. So he's going to move here. That costs 3. Actually, I can't do that. That's not going to work. Well, I really don't want to subject myself to open here. Although I could, because he won't get the adjacent plus 3. He'll just get the plus 4, which is still pretty bad, but we're going to do it. So he's going to jump out here. Now he can fire at him. I believe you can fire up the spine, I think. So, and if I'm wrong, correct me. I'm not going to check the rule because I'm just not. So he's going to move here. He's in open, so that's going to give them a plus 4. Opportunity fire, so it's 2 plus 4 is 6. There's no terrain modifier, so it's a 6. They rolled a 9, so that's a miss. So he's going to now move here. He gets marked used. He also gets marked used. Now, this is 1, and this costs 4 because you're going into jungle and up a hill. So that's a total of 4. So 1 plus 4 is 5. That is their full movement. The Japanese movement in this scenario is 4. Now, this guy, I can't do that with because I'm only going to have, I don't have enough command points to do it. But what we're going to do with him is, well, what are we going to do with him? That's the question. If we move here, that would be 3. All right, we'll do that. Mark him used. That's 3. Because I can't get him close enough. So we flip over back to the Japanese. Now, they can only move again if they have line of sight on an American unit. So I guess this one does. But again, do we really want to do anything? I'm going to go with some op fire here for these. We'll put 1 on him. 1 on him, 1 on him. And do I have any more op fires out? No. Grab one from the back here. They're going to use all 4 just to wrap this up here. So that wraps that up for them, and we go back to the Americans. They have 3 units left they have not used. So now we'll do our machine gun move. 1.5, 4.5. We're going to face him this way so he can shoot at that gun, which he is going to do. And then we're going to mark him used, and he used the command point. So we'll put the command point on there. So his proficient firepower is a 6. We're going to get 1 for hindrance to make it a 5, and we're going to lose 2 for the jungle to make it a 3, but he is going to shoot at that Japanese unit, and he got a 4, which is not a hit. So he is now used. They could have done final op fire. I mean, I guess we should try it, and I should have done it when he moved in there before the shot. But since he missed anyway, I guess it's okay. So he has a 2, which -2 would be 0. And then he's going to lose another 1 for here and another 2 for that. So it's like really negative. But if you roll a 1, it's always a hit. And we didn't. So it's a moot point. But you want to follow the procedure when you remember to do so, which I don't always do. Now we have our weapons team here. So he can go 1, 2, 3. And then a path through the jungle is 1. So the question is, do I want to move him this way or do I want to move him this way? Because that's 3. 1.5 plus 1.5 is 3. So he's at 3 right now. I can move him here for 1, or I can move him here for 1. Because then next turn he could go 1, 2, 3, if we can eliminate this guy. So let's do that. We'll move him here. We'll face him, down the spine this way. Mark him used. Now we have 1 more to do. He's suppressed, so I have to roll to see if he can even do anything. And he can. So now we're going to move him. And I'm going to move him 1.5. 2.5, 3.5, 4.5. Stop there. This guy can fire at him, so we'll take the shot again. It's 2. He's going to need to roll a 1 because he just needs to roll a 1. Actually, he couldn't because he would have had to use the command point to fire at the machine gun. So he used his command point because you can only do final op fire on an adjacent unit, so he can't fire at him. So we will mark this guy as being used. And that's the end of turn 2 operations. So now we would go to the route check. So he's in beneficial terrain. He doesn't need a route check. This guy will. This guy will if there's somebody in here who is suppressed. None of these guys are... the American unit there is suppressed. So we'll roll for that one. The Americans roll first because they moved first. So we need a 6. Got a 9. Figures. All right. So he has to route. He can route. He'll route here and then here. So basically back where that guy came from. So now this guy, and this one's going to route almost for sure. He needs to roll a 2 or a 1. And yep. So he'll go here. Well, we can route towards any map edge. So he can go here for 1.5 and then here for 3 and stop. Because this is beneficial terrain, even though it's only a -1. So we're going to have at least 1 melee. Now we have to do down here. So we have 2. Both of these units are suppressed, but we got to do the Americans first. So we need a 6 or lower. Got a 2, so the American's okay. So we need to do this guy right here, which is a 6. Now, anybody who's in melee with the Japanese gets a +2, so he actually needs only an 8 or less. Okay, so he's good too. Even if it was still a 6, he would be good. So these 2 are good. Now we have to do the Japanese, which I think they only have 1. Because if they have S for Saishin, this guy does not actually, so he might have to retreat. So their numbers are 7, which is easier to get, obviously. He rolled a 4, so he's fine. Let's do this one, who does, he is in melee, so even though he has the size shin, he still has to roll a 6 or less to not rout. And he rolls a 7. He rolled a 7. So now this is interesting because they only have, well, I guess he can, they have to route away from the enemy. And so they must route, it must move at least 1 hex and cannot move adjacent to an enemy unit which is not in melee. So he can actually retreat here because this one's in melee. This one's not, though, so he can't do that. That's 3. But he could go the other way. He could go this way. If he goes here, that's 1.5. That's 3. He can do that. Because now he's not adjacent to an American who's in melee, and he is in beneficial terrain. So that's the end of the route phase, I believe. I don't think anybody else is... Yeah. That's the end of the route phase. So now we go to the melee phase. We have 1 melee to resolve, right? No, 2. So let's do this one up here. So the Americans have a 6 for melee, and the Japanese have a 2 in this particular one here. So we'll roll the US first. We get a 4 and a 3, so that's 2 hits. So that is going to eliminate that Japanese unit. Now we roll for them. They get an 8 and a 10, so they're eliminated, and the Americans escape unscathed. So that's there. Okay, now we do this one. So the Americans again are a 6. And the Japanese, one is a 4 and the other is a 2. So we'll do the Americans first again, and they are a 6, as I mentioned. They get a 1 and a 10. So they do one step of damage. Now we'll do the Japanese. They have a 4 with the Colonel. He's got 2-1, so he's going to eliminate this unit. And I don't even really need to roll for the other one, but I will anyway. They roll a 7 and a 2. So the Americans took 3 levels of damage, and then this squad is eliminated. They can get their command point back. So that's not good for the Americans. So they basically, they won 1, but they also lost 1. The Colonel's tough, and he does give that +1 morale that I may have forgotten here and there, maybe. Because this guy's eligible. Actually, no. They have to be... Yeah, within 2 hexes. So these 2 are both eligible, so is that one. Okay, so that's it. And now we go to the recovery phase, and I'm going to pull all these off, and I'll do that off camera. Okay, we are on to turn number 3. And back to the Americans' operations here. So, again, range is 2 to 4. We have 1 unit that is suppressed and 2 units that are reduced. Things have not been going swimmingly for the Corps thus far. Let's see if we can change our luck a little bit. Okay, first thing we are going to do here is we're going to take our weapons team and we are going to fire through, and we're going to try to suppress these guys. Hopefully roll really well, and it's unlikely, but it's worth a shot. So they're going to fire with 7. They're going to lose 1 here and 2 there for a total of 3. So we're looking at a 4. So we need a 4. Roll a 6. The rolling for the U.S. forces has just been pretty flat out awful. Okay then. I'm going to do something a little strange here. I'm going to move him here. Okay. That subjects him to op fire. So we'll roll for the op fire. So it's 4. Okay. Adjacent makes it a 7. And then we lose 2. So it's 5. Okay. So it's 5 for the Colonel, what is his name again? Colonel Masajiro Formiya. He rolled a 3. So, what did I say his firepower was? 4 plus 3 is 7, minus 2 is 5. So that's a suppression. Okay. Now we'll roll for the other one, which is a second line squad. Their firepower is a 4. They'll get the plus 3 to make it a 7 and take a minus 2 to make it a 5. Actually, no, it's a 2. 2 plus 3 is 5, minus 2 is 3. Rolled an 8, so they miss. Now we're going to roll for the Americans. If we get less than a 6, he's going to move in there for assault. We're going to use a command point. You have to play the command point before you do the morale check. Well, it's a 6. I'm taking it. And so he's going to move in for melee again and hope we do better this time than we did last time. Okay, so now this guy is going to move into melee here, so he's obviously going to shoot at him. So it's a 6. 6 plus 3 is 9, minus 2 is 7, so this is a tough cookie here. Rolled a 4, so that is a hit, but not low enough to actually be a, double suppression. He is going to get this used marker. So he's going to roll for the morale check here. Needs less than a 6. Gets a 1, so he can still move in for melee. Hopefully we do better next time. Okay. So that's 3. We can do one more. And we are going to do it. We're going to use our other machine gun here. He's going to fire at this guy. So it's a 7. We're going to lose a minus 2 and a minus 1 for 3. So we're looking for a 4 or less. And we rolled a 6. Shocking. Okay, that's 4. That's it. We're done. We flip over to the Japanese. This is turn 3. They get their last unit from the cup. And they get a frontline squad here. So that's a good one for them. Question is, where do we want to put it? Well, we're going to put him right here. And he gets a concealment, but he's going to lose it right away. So he's facing this way. He's going to attack the machine gun here. That's going to be our first move. He's going to attack the machine gun. He's coming in from its flank. So he's attempting an assault, right? They'll obviously do final op fire. So their proficient firepower is a 6. We take 2 to make it a 4. They get plus 3 to make it a 7, and then we take 2 away for the jungle to make it a 5. So we need a 5 or less to hit, and we get a 1. Now, because we got a 1, we get an event, but more importantly, we also get a full suppression and a reduction, because it's the casualty rating's a 3, and there's a 4 difference between the firepower and the die roll. So he gets fully suppressed. And now he can still attempt to get in there, but he needs to roll a 4 here. And he does. So he gets in there. He does get in there. And they actually have an advantage in this melee because their melee firepower is a 3 and the machine guns is only a 2. So he also gets a used marker. So that's one activation for the Japanese. We're going to do this one here. He's going to attempt to get in there as well. We're going to do I'm going to use a command point so that we can do final firepower here, a final op fire rather. So I'm just going to stick this under the used marker. So it's 6 minus 2 is 4. We're going to lose another one, 1, 2 for the hindrance. So that's a minus 3, so it's going to be a 3. And because he's attempting to move into melee, we use this one here. So that's actually Actually, it's a 2 because we lose one for hindrance and then another one for the terrain. So it is a 2 that we need. And I forgot to roll for the event over here. We rolled a 9. That's a miss. So they're going to be successfully in melee here. Now let me roll for the event that I neglected to do for this guy here. So it was a 1 and for the Americans. So a 4. Pick one squad that has been eliminated and place it used on its reduced side with a lone, unconcealed, unmounted squad of the same nationality. A squad may remove its concealment so this may be placed if none are available. Well, I do have some available, so we're going to put this guy back in play, and I will put him with my machine gun. And it has to be placed as used, which it is. So put the command point on there. Okay. So that event actually was pretty good. So that is 2 activations for the Japanese. We're going to put an op fire on this guy. Or should we put it on this guy? Let's put it on this guy. And that's 3, and they will now pass. We go back to the Americans. And let's see, what do we want to do here? Well, we're going to assault with this guy. So the first thing that's going to happen is he's going to op fire, right? So he gets his full firepower of 3. Plus 3 for adjacents is 6. Now it's uphill, so that's a -1, and it's in jungle, so it's going to end up being a 3 again. So we'll roll a 7. So he misses. He gets marked used. And this guy gets to move in for assault. And because he came in, well, I guess he would have turned to fire, right? So he would have turned this way. So it's not a flank attack. It's not a flank attack, but he does get marked as being used. Okay, so now this, what do we want to do next? Well, now that he's there, I think we can remove this, and we're going to move this guy out. So he can go here for 1, 2, 5. We'll do that. That makes him visible to this unit. And they will op fire at him. So there's no hindrance. So they're starting at a 2, and it's a 2 there. So it's going to be, they need a 0, or in effect, they need a 1. They got a 5. So that's just going to mark them used, which is fine. They're no longer concealed, which is less fine. But he was going to fire at them anyway, so he's going to do that now. So it's a 4. We're going across, and so it's going to be a 2 because they're in jungle. And we rolled a 1, so again we get an event for the Americans, and we do suppress them. So actually, he would have had to turn this way to op fire and change his facing. Okay. So he's marked used. That is 2, which is all I have to do right now. We're going to move this guy here. He will op fire. So that's 2 plus 3 minus 2. So it's going to be a firepower of 3. Damn. Okay, so he's going to get marked used. And we roll for an event. So let's roll for the event before we do the morale check. So since it was 2, this is going to be an American event. It's a 2. Sniper attack. Pick one unconcealed squad weapons team and reduce it. I'm thinking it's an enemy one because, yeah, I'm going to assume it's an enemy one, and I'm going to reduce one of the Japanese guys. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to remove this guy. He's fully suppressed. He's already reduced. So we're going to remove him. Well, actually, it doesn't say. Well, one unconcealed. I guess I won't do that. That wouldn't be right, in my opinion. But we'll do it here. So we're going to reduce him. Now we'll roll to see if he can get, if he can fire. I wasn't trying to actually assault here. I'm just trying to get suppression on this guy. So no. So that was unsuccessful. Now he's going to move in. So again, now they can do final op fire. So their firepower is a 2, minus 2 is 0, but they get plus 3, so it's a 3. They need a 3 or less. They rolled an 8, so that fails. So that was a 3. Now he's going to use 3 more, and he's going to move in here, and I'm going to use one of my extra command points. And that's the end of that. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4. We're done. So now we go back to the Japanese. Well, they don't have anybody that really can do anything. They don't have, they have line of sight here. They actually have line of sight, so they could, in theory, do something. But the Japanese already have 2 units in here. So they're going to move, I guess. So let's move them here and mark them used. And then we'll mark these 2 guys as op fire. And that will complete the Japanese turn. Yeah. So back to the Americans. We have this guy right here. I do have one. I can't get close enough to that guy to actually... Oh, I could join this melee, though. That's not a bad call. Yeah, we're going to do that. So he's going to go... Whoops. 1.5, 4.5, and he's going to join the melee here. Because we need that 6 in there. That's 1. And now I'm going to use my other one, which is over here. And he's going to move up. So he can go 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5. And we'll stop right there. And mark him used. And that completes the operation. So now we will go over and do our route checks. Doesn't need to take one. They will. They won't. They don't need one. They need one. They don't need one. They don't need one. So I think the only one that needs one, well, there's 2 that need one. Here and here. They both need one. All right. So we'll do the American here first. It's a 6. Okay, so he's safe. Now we'll do this one. We also need a 6. They're killing me with this. So they'll go here for 1.5 and then here for 3 more to make it. Turn its facing. All right, so we did pass there. They don't need one. They don't need one. These guys don't have them. So now let's do the melee phase. So here we have Americans with a firepower of 6 against Japanese with a firepower of 1. Americans first. 2 10s. Wow. Okay. Now the Japanese. 8 and 6. So nothing happens there. They're going to stay in melee. Now down here again, we have Americans with 6. There's only one of them now. Then we have a Japanese with a 4 and a Japanese with a 2. So we'll roll the Americans first. 1 hit. First Japanese. 2 hits. And again, the Colonel is just wiping us out. And they got 3 hits. So again, the Japanese continue to roll well. This guy is now eliminated. Take my command point back. So we lose another unit. We did recover one, but still, this is brutal. And they're going to reduce this guy because they did at least get 1 hit on him. All right, so let's do this one. So the Japanese here have a 3, and the Americans have a 6 and a 2, I believe. Yeah. So we'll do the Americans first. 6 first. And they miss both, of course. And now we'll do for the 2. And they miss both, of course. And now we'll do for the Japanese, who have a 3. And they'll probably roll 2 that are under 3. Look at that. The Japanese are whooping ass here. Actually, wait a minute. I didn't route check that unit, and I needed to do that. Oh, Joe. Okay, so we're going to route check this guy. He needs a 4. And he rolls a 4, so that's good. So we'll take that result. We're going to eliminate this unit, because he had 2 hits. That's unbelievable. And we're going to reduce this guy. And he has to retreat. So, he'll retreat over here. And he gets fully suppressed as well. So, whoops. Fully suppressed. And suppressed. This guy gets to hold that. And, well, they're technically used as well. But that's go. Oh, we have one more to do. We have one more to do. So it's 6 against 2. So we'll do the Americans first, and it'll be like an 8 and a 9 probably. 5 and a 6, 2 hits. Finally, rolled well. Now they have a 2, and they rolled 2 10s. So they got the Americans locked that turn. So they get eliminated. And the Americans capture this. So they're good. And that is the end of turn 2. I'm going to stop here. I mean, that is the end of turn 3 and the end of part 2 of this playthrough. We will pick it up with part 3, which will cover the last 3 turns of the scenario here. The Japanese do not get any more reinforcements, so things hopefully will move a little bit more quickly. The Americans are not doing well. The rolling has been atrocious in melee. This one is, they're locked in melee still. We've lost a couple units. We've lost one more unit than the Japanese have. As far as the American side goes, I was expecting the Americans to win this, to be honest, but now I feel like it's up in the air whether or not they can actually do it. The Colonel here is killing us, plain out killing us. From the American side, from the Japanese standpoint, he's a hero right now. So that is going to do it. Please consider liking, sharing, subscribing, etc., etc. The usual rigmarole. So my name's Joe. This has been Hexed Encountered. And until next time, happy gaming.